Sam Blum of The Athletic joins us today, and he brings some clarity about why Artie came back, how that impacts long-term plans for Shohei Ohtani, and the plans for the future for the Angels. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen every day. Every show is free and available on all platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And the best way to help us out is by giving us a rate and a review. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure that you're subscribed and click that bell to be notified every time a new episode drops. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started.
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for being here with us for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we're so excited to get into today's conversation with the Athletic writer, Sam Blum. He covers the Angels for the Athletic. Mike, we had a great conversation. We're going to share that with you, the Locked On Angels listeners and viewers. You ready to get into it?
Let's go. I'm ready.
We are so thrilled to have Sam Blum, who covers the Angels for The Athletic, with us and have a great conversation with him. Sam, thank you for being here with us.
Thanks, John. Yeah, thanks, Mike. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're so glad to have you, my friend. And it's been a long time coming, I think. It's about time we all got together and had ourselves a conversation about the Halos, man.
I'm getting excited. Only 2 weeks. I leave 2 weeks from today to go to spring training. So
wow,
I've been bored now for like a month. So let's do
it. It's time to get back on the road.
Yeah. All right, Sam, let's jump right into it. You were the guy that kind of broke the news about Arte Moreno. You gave some really good information. So I have a question for you. How did we go from Arte exploring the sale of this team to him changing his mind? What was his motivations for changing his mind? Can you help us out? Angel fans want to know.
Yes.
Well, I don't want to take any credit for breaking that news, because that's the whims of Arte Moreno kind of broke. I would say he broke the news, and he broke a lot of hearts in the process.
Yes.
But his reasons. I mean, I know I've seen people say, like there have been some articles that have cited kind of vaguely Arte Moreno's friends, saying maybe, well, he got excited about spring training, or, he had a change of heart. I mean, I don't know. I'm more cynical than that. So, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and speculate on specific reasons. He had, like I've mentioned many times on, online, and in articles, he's really, he's not transparent whatsoever. And really none of the upper management with the Angels is. And so it's kind of tough to give you a concrete answer as to why he changed it. I can tell you that they had really significant offers that would have probably changed the way the Angels were run in a really positive way. And I think that's why people are upset.
That hurts to hear.
Yeah, I mean, the offers probably would have topped what Steve Cohen paid for the Mets. And if somebody's paying more than what Steve Cohen paid for the Mets, which was, I believe, $2.4 billion, then you'd have to believe that this owner, whoever it was going to be, I mean, they had 5 really strong bidders that were all probably willing to go over $2.5 billion. This is a franchise that I think it's the butt of a lot of jokes, and rightfully so. I think.
And we know.
And I think when this process happened, I think that there were a lot of potential owners and a lot of people that got excited because you see a lot of potential. I mean, this is a Southern California team, that has superstar talent already locked in, that has a fan base that I think can really only grow, that the Angels maybe haven't done a lot of things to grow it, that there's a lot of potential to grow it, that land around the stadium, which is, that deal is still not consummated. So there's just so much potential. And I think that's why this process was, going to be such a lucrative one. And I think that's why so many Angels fans are just like, no, because we already got the track record. I mean, I don't know what he'll do now. Maybe he's going to look back and say, I want to leave a better legacy. But, I always say, look at the back of someone's baseball card. They don't usually deviate. So, I have a hard time believing that Arte Moreno is going to be a different person who's going to operate things a lot differently, who's going to spend a lot more. And there's a lot of the ramifications. I'm sure we'll talk more about Ohtani and what this all means. So, but To tell you why he did it, I don't know. I just can tell you that I'm more cynical and skeptical of the well, he's just excited, you know.
Right.
There's a lot of things that have happened over the last year, a lot of off the field things that have happened, and you know, maybe some calculations or factors changed in that process, you know, with land deals or, you know, lawsuits or whatever it might be. That's just, I think that could be part of the equation. I have no direct knowledge of it, to be honest with you, but there's probably a lot of reasons why he decided to change his mind. But I do know that, you know, it's frustrating for people that were involved in that process, that sale process, and Angels fans right now who are, you know, probably, you know, wishing that there was a path forward to, hey, look what the Mets are doing right now with the new owner, because they had bad ownership with the Wilpons, and now they're in contention for every big free agent, and they're, you know, they look like they're a competitive team and are built to be competitive long term, which is right now. I mean, I think the Angels have a chance of being a lot better than they were last year, but you know, we say that every year, so I'm always going to be skeptical until it actually happens.
You do know the Angels.
Yeah, I know them all too well.
Yeah, it's only been almost 2 years now, but I do feel like I feel the pain of every Angels fan just because I talk to so many of them, and it's like,
yeah.
And once you're in it every day, it's like this. You can see why it's frustrating, because it shouldn't be like this. There's so many little things that could be done better. That, you know, I try to tell the story of the Angels through these like little ways that they can be doing things a little bit better. And all that needs to happen is somebody needs to invest a little bit more in this area. And all of a sudden you'll see a franchise that's a lot better run, and people are a lot happier working and playing for. But, you know, it's just not happening.
Yeah. Sam, have you ever experienced in your experience a team like this that is just radio silent when big things are happening? Because it feels like other teams are in front of the media, they're talking, they're giving updates. But with the Angels, it feels like they just don't tell us anything. And then we end up finding out on Twitter that, oh, Artie's not selling now, right? And so that just seems odd to me. But for someone in your field with your experience, is it odd? Is it strange? Or is this kind of the norm?
Well, you know, most of my experience is covering college sports, and it's a totally different atmosphere when you cover college sports, because it's the access is really purposefully cut off. And I think for some reasons that's a good thing. And I think for a lot of other reasons, I mean, we could go into the dynamics of college athletics and media for a long time. But I mean, I think to answer your question, the Angels are a little bit different and probably a little bit less transparent. I mean, you know, I don't think it's completely anomalous. Like, there are teams where owners don't really speak, or if they do, it's infrequent. I think the thing that separates the Angels is that they really try to control their own narrative in a way that's like, you know, and I don't even know if that's always Artie, and I think some of that's Perry. I mean, they really are, you know, you're not going to get information from them. And from my perspective, you know what, it's frustrating that they do that sometimes, but I'd also like, as a reporter, and this is kind of going to the nuts and bolts of my job, like I don't always like really, like, I'm not the kind of person that a GM is going to want to give a scoop to, because I don't think that they like me that much, to be honest with you. So if they're not going to give a scoop to anyone, then it just kind of frees me up to do things the way I want to do them. So you don't have to worry about pleasing anybody or you know, making someone happy or exchanging something for, you know, information. It's just, hey, you know, I call it like I see it, and you know, I try to talk to people around them, and that's how you get information, how you get stuff that somebody else isn't getting, and it's not just going to be leaked to someone who's friendly or whoever it might be, you know, or a national person. I mean, it's crazy. You think, like, you're right. Like, you're finding out about Arte Moreno is not selling the team on Twitter. Like, that's the kind of thing that, you know, even like Joe Madden getting fired wasn't even leaked like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? That was like, that's the kind of stuff, like, national, like, if that's not even getting to like a, you know, Jeff Pass and a Ken Rosenthal, Ken, who I work with, obviously, is a great colleague and incredible reporter. But if that stuff's not even getting to them, then it's like, just kind of shows the way the Angels really try to control their message. Sometimes they do it very successfully. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah. And I think that Angel fans agree. And the general consensus is that in your coverage of the Angels for The Athletic, like, it's very honest. And I think that real fans appreciate that, in the sense that, you know, you speak very objectively about the team and, you know, their struggles, where they have their, you know, their deficiencies, and that's the kind of coverage that I think that real fans appreciate. But it seems like perhaps, does that come at the expense of getting those breaking stories or that kind of news? Do you feel that way?
Yeah, it could, but at the end of the day, it's also not that relevant to, like, if you're gonna, I've always like looked at, and this is again just kind of going into the nuts and bolts of like reporting, but I always kind of look at it as there are two different types of news you can break. Like there's the kind of news that is going to come out anyway, which is usually the kind of news that GMs or front office people can give you, and then there's the kind of news that you break that maybe nobody would have found out if you hadn't looked into it. So that's always my goal, is the latter usually. And it's not easy. It's really not. It's a I don't always do that successfully either, but it's and I think if you are telling people the honest truth, then that goes a long way. If you can analyze a situation with the knowledge you have of an organization, I think that is very valuable to readers. At least I hope it is. And in some ways, I think it's way more valuable than being able to tell you right off the bat, 10 minutes before the team tweets it, who they signed. So, it's not to diminish. I think really good report, like I mentioned, Ken. I mean, one thing I've really admired about him, and I hope people who follow baseball and who covers baseball well, like what I really respect about him and what I think sets him apart from some other, Jeff Passan does a good job of this too, is that they do a really good job of being able to have objective analysis where they're honest and where they're able to report things that don't always put teams or people in good lights, and then also be able to break news. That's how you can really tell a great reporter, in my opinion. They can do all of it and not and have people respect them so much where they can say what they need to say and it doesn't impact relationships. I really respect that about Ken. It's just, I think those guys do a really good job of that specific thing. And so, from my perspective, I'd like to be able to get all of it, but when you're on a beat, it is tough sometimes to kind of to be able to play. And you're also in the clubhouse with some people, and you learn the hard way that sometimes, hey, you do want to be careful. Like you don't always want to just be like, man, you have to be tactful sometimes. And I think the players also know when they're not playing well, and they're not necessarily. Some people, most won't take it personally if you write so and so is not playing well. I think as long as you go and you approach them and you ask them why, and you kind of talk to them like a human being, and you come at it with a sense of, hey, like we all go through that, like you at a human level. I think that's what we have to cover. And it's different. It's like we talked about college sports. You don't get that access, and you're not there every day necessarily. When you're in a major league clubhouse, I think as long as you treat people like humans and you understand that they're players and coaches and everyone's going through the ups and downs of a very difficult job, you can do it, but I still think that that shouldn't prevent you from saying what's obvious. Like if somebody's not playing well, it's fair to say they're not playing well. And I think you should say that.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are here, and we're really excited about our new sports betting partner for Locked On Angels because they're the #1 sports book in America. They are FanDuel. And if you're new to FanDuel, that's even better. They have so many great features that make betting on sports fun and easy. New customers, if you join today, you can get started with $150 in free bets, guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel has all your favorite bets from the money line to the point spread to the player props. Plus, you can even combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. It's all on the app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. So football fans, don't miss out. Place your first $5 bet to get $150 in free bets, win or lose at FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen today. And for your second listen, you got to check out Locked On MLB Prospects with host Lindsey Crosby. He is a prospect encyclopedia, and we're not just saying that. He knows his stuff about the MLB stars of tomorrow. So if you want to get the inside scoop on who to watch out for in 2023, check out Locked On MLB Prospects. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Getting into the nuts and bolts of reporting, like you're saying, we had a listener question, and this came from Andrew Rizzle on Instagram. He said, we know Artie doesn't do interviews. Anything the media can do about that? He also said, big fan of Sam, by the way. So you got a fan out there for you. So
how can anyone not like Sam? Come on.
Anything you could do. I mean, I just keep calling it out, right? I mean, that's the, and I do think that people notice it a little more. I've been saying it a lot, and I hear it a lot more. Like, I see comments, my articles are like, well, Artie hasn't done that. And I think, I think it gets under his skin. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. I met the guy twice. I mean, one time I met him at spring training, shook his hand, said hello. One time I walked past him on the stairwell at Angel Stadium, and I said hi, and he said hi. He was friendly, said hello. But that's it. Maybe one of these days I'll have to go, find him somewhere and just like stick a recorder in his face. Because I mean, listen, I'm not above that. It's part of the job, but you know that I think that you know, just try to work around it. I mean, you have to. Like I wrote this story last. I mean, I think I know we're going to talk about it later. The Spanish broadcast story. Like,
yes,
you know, that was a situation where it's just like I was shocked they didn't comment for it because I thought, hey, like all you have to do is say you care.
Right.
You know, you create a little bit of empathy and, you know, show you have empathy and get a little bit of sympathy from the readership. But no, they wouldn't even do that. And so, you know, you just kind of keep finding stories that show what the Angels really are and how they're run and why. I mean, like, I don't think Spanish broadcasts determine how good the Angels are, but I think the fact that they don't do them in the right way shows that why they aren't a good franchise in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's reflective
It's reflective of the problems.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean, there's things you can do are just try to find stories like that, that you know, force their hand to at least consider commenting. You know, and you know, you just got to keep working around him. That's it. I mean, and you got to keep asking. I ask Angels PR to talk to Arte pretty regularly. They always say no, but you know, you got to ask, and that's really all you can do.
Go for the no. I love that. And speaking of the Spanish broadcasting situation, that was such an eye-opening thing for John and I, and for Angel fans to hear about. What really led you to explore that, and how did you end up with a story?
I just noticed they didn't have one. Like, you know, it just was like,
where are you? You're in Orange County. Yeah. What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking like, I mean, you know, I mean, and I think it was also Jaime retiring with the Dodgers. And I just remember like that you know, that just being such a big deal and like how celebrated he was. And I'm like, do the Angels, and then you just kind of like, where's the Angels broadcast? What's happening here? You know, that was really it. You know, I just called up really like in early December, just called up somebody who I thought would have some more information. And it kind of led me to Jose Tolentino, who is, you know, fairly, I think, frustrated. I mean, one thing Jose and I kind of talked about was like, he just didn't realize how bad it was till like we really started talking about it. I think he had kind of gotten numb to the situation and was, you know, pretty just like, okay, this is what it is. And then we start talking it out, and he's like, he doesn't even realize how crazy his story is. I mean, to be calling these games from his laundry room and the people he was working for. And it's just sad. I feel bad for him, and I feel bad for, I mean, I've talked about this elsewhere, but I just think that, you know, all 30 teams should do 162 games in Spanish. But especially the Angels. There's no reason why a team in Orange County that calls themselves Los Angeles Angels. I mean, the Los Angeles County is 50-50 in terms of Spanish speakers and English speakers. So there's no reason why this shouldn't be a higher priority. And there are a lot of things the Angels do poorly with their broadcast situation. I mean, they're about to be like on their 6th play-by-play guy in English. They didn't travel. They didn't travel last year, which was really embarrassing with all those technical issues. And you know, they still don't travel the radio broadcasts. You know, I'm not even sure why that is, to be honest with you. So there's just a lot of things that they kind of cut corners on in this area. And you know, it's how the broadcasters perform is not going to change the way the players perform. But you know, when you kind of are, first off, it's the direct conduit to the fans. So I mean, this is how people engage with your team on the primary level. I'm a secondary person. Like, you know, if I'm not at a game for a week, if I don't go on a road trip, like people could still watch the games and still, you know, there's still that you could. That I'm secondary. Like, it's not, the show goes on, but if the TV and the radio, like, that's really important. That's how people consume on a primary level outside of going to games directly. So they really need it, and they need it to be good. And I just think it's just another way the Angels cut corners. There's a lot of ways. I mean, more ways I'm looking into now, honestly. So we're, you know, hopefully more stories like that where people understand why is it that the Angels struggle to win games. And it's, you know, as much as people in that, you know, on the coaching staff and front office want to point to all the great free agents, and they have gotten some good free agents that obviously have not panned out, but you know, it's a one factor in a many things that are not. I mean, it's one good thing in a slew of many things that they're just not doing very well.
Yes, definitely. Have they reached out to you? I know you mentioned they didn't have a comment, but have you heard from them at all, or have they spoken to Jose? Do you know if?
Nope. They haven't talked to him. Haven't talked to me. As far as I know, they haven't talked. I mean, I've talked to Jose as recently as a few days ago.
So they take that media and radio silence pretty serious across the board, don't they? Like, we don't talk to anybody.
I mean, I just don't know what I mean, you know, I mean, I'm going to keep following up on them once the season starts.
sure.
They still haven't done it. Why not keep pointing it out? It's pretty crazy to me. I feel bad for Jose. Yeah.
We're talking with Sam Blum of The Athletic. He covers the Angels. And I actually did the $1.99 a month subscription. So people who haven't subscribed yet got to get on that, because that's like the discount of the year, man.
There's always some discount. I mean,
there's something out there all the time. Yeah.
They always have something. I'm like, okay.
Well, going back to the Arte Moreno conversation, and Mike and I certainly have shared our feelings about it. And of course, the day the news broke, and we often get told, like, you guys are too positive. Well, we were not positive.
We jumped the shark that day. we went so negative. It was awesome.
But I want to ask you, like, does Arte returning help or hinder the possibility of Shohei staying? I just want to hear your perspective on that.
I mean, listen, I saw there was something where, like, Ohtani maybe liked some sort of thing on Instagram where about him returning. So I'm sure that's going to create a lot of speculation. I have no idea.
We're certainly reaching for any sort of hope, right?
I mean, and that's how we are with Shohei too. I mean, there's probably a lot, maybe for a future podcast, we could talk about Ohtani's accessibility and stuff like that. But he's very honest. He sometimes, I think, can hold back a little bit. But I mean, if you read between the lines on everything Ohtani has said, and just looking at the situation as we know it to be with his contract, with free agency and what that might mean, I mean, I can't imagine this helps. I mean, there's just no equation in my mind where this helps. That's not to say it's impossible for them to re-sign him.
Sure.
I do think he likes playing for the Angels. I think he, obviously he's been here for 5, and it was like the last 2 years or really when he became such a massive household name across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
But he's been there 5 years. He's developed relationships. I think the Angels have handled him well. I mean, in terms of giving him the autonomy to kind of train as he thinks he's fit, to go and play in the World Baseball Classic and maybe not necessarily be there in spring, like to train. I mean, he's really kind of does his own thing, and they give him that space. And I think that they handle him perfectly, really. I mean, I do think that. And I think that goes a long way with how he views his experience in Anaheim. That being said, I mean, you have to just look at the money and the way Arte spends it. I mean, is he going to go above the luxury tax threshold? I mean,
he hasn't yet.
I mean, he increased payroll a little bit this year, but then to keep Ohtani, I think that, I mean, he's going to be upwards or close to, I think, $400 to $500 million at minimum, really, for whatever number of years that is. So if you're talking about, 8-year deal of $500 million, I mean, it's going to be ridiculous. I mean, you're going to have to be spending, like $40 million a year on top of the 38 you're spending on Anthony Rendon, who's going to be, mid-30s next year, and all this injury issues. You're going to have Mike Trout, who's had some injury issues the last couple of years, also making more $30 million a year, $35 million a year. So you're going to have guys three guys well upward of $100 million. And then I don't know how you fill out the roster, especially since there are already some other guys they owe money to, like David Fletcher, Max Stassi, and there's it's not insignificant, really. So I don't know how they're going to build a roster that stays under the luxury tax threshold, that includes Shohei Ohtani, who's also going to be aging, quite frankly. I mean, he's going to be above 30 at some point, and I think he's 28 now, so turning 29 at some point fairly soon. So it's not out of the realm of possibility where you just look at it and you're like, how are they going to spend this? Unless Arte is going to up that payroll and really, really do what it takes to keep him and build a roster around him. I mean, I don't know how, because that's going to be critical for him too. I mean, Shohei's not just going to want to get his bag in Anaheim and then come play and then play for a team that continues to lose.
Sure,
because he can get it anywhere. I mean, he can go. Yeah. He can go. I've always kind of thought the 3 teams that make the most sense would be the Angels, the Dodgers, and the Mets. If you really want to stay on the West Coast, I think the Dodgers are obviously, they didn't spend a lot this offseason. They're clearly kind of building maybe a treasure chest to make a big offer with Ohtani. I'm sure a lot of teams are. I'm sure the Padres are thinking the same thing. The Giants. I'm guessing the Mets. I mean, the Mets are an obvious team for Ohtani in the sense that they can probably pay him more than anybody. So. And that's why people were excited about a new owner, come in and maybe do the same thing. So I think it hurts. I do. I'm just being honest. I don't see how it helps. That being said, I don't think it's impossible. It was just the equation would need to change. Something would need to change, whether that's dumping a contract of some kind or upping your payroll in other ways. You have to win this year too. I mean, you can't get to the trade deadline this year and be well out of it and feel like, you're going to keep him. I mean, I would just trade him at that point and try to get something in return. So there's a lot of factors. I think something in the equation would need to change though, in order for the Angels to keep him.
Speaking of payroll, they spent money this offseason. Did that surprise you? And I know that you gave a grade for their offseason moves. Would you give that grade again and give us your thoughts as to this roster construction?
I think, the B+, I think it's a good grade. I think that if you look at their overall offseason, I would now downgrade it a little bit just because of the Arte news. I mean, I think that takes it. Yeah, it changes it does.
Those darn really deadlines.
That being said, I think the Arte situation probably impacted this really positive offseason and how they kind of handled it. I mean, they made smart decisions, in my opinion.
Yes.
You could have. I think there was a case to be made before they started spending a little bit. Okay, maybe they should just really take a hard look at themselves in the mirror and try to build up a farm system and maybe trade away some guys and like build that way, because it's prudent, and the Angels have never done it really. And sometimes you have to make tough choices in order to get long-term success. That being said, the other way to do it is to just spend a lot. And they spent more. I mean, they didn't spend a ridiculous amount, but I think the people that they did spend on addressed the needs that they had.
Yeah.
So they I think I give Perry a lot of credit, honestly, because I don't think it's easy to be able to find the guys that he did, short-term deals. Obviously some guys were in arbitration, they got their trades. But these guys on paper fill the needs that they had. And they're well equipped for an injury. So, there's a reason why I think going into 2023, you can look at this team and say, hey, they could be better. Again, I don't think they've earned the benefit of the doubt to assume that at any point, because, they're also not bringing up a lot of guys. There's not a lot of people in their farm system right now who I think are majorly ready, that they've not developed those players. And I think it leads to them rushing some guys. And I think then you see, okay, well, this is why Joe Adell maybe where he is. He's rushed, and it's a byproduct of you don't have other players you can call up sometimes, or they get pushed through the system really quickly. A lot of guys get put right in AA for the Angels. So there is definitely, I think, some positive momentum for the 2023 season. I think that they'll be better. I think they'll compete for the playoffs. But it's I might have thought the same thing a year ago this time. So but they're better. They're definitely better. I mean, there's no way to look at this team and say, hey, it's worse. But it's just not a sure thing with them ever.
You mentioned it in your grade article, going from Rendon to like Urshela and Drury. Like those are the kinds of things that have been missing in years past. They built out that depth. So that's encouraging as a fan. Do you feel like, obviously there was 5 primetime shortstops out there and the Angels didn't go after them. Shortstop was kind of a need. Maybe a true back of the bullpen closer like a Raisel Iglesias type is kind of a need. Do you think those kind of needs are going to hold them back, or do you like who they have? How do you feel about that?
Well, that Raisel Iglesias trade just looks terrible to me right now.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
I mean, first off, he was electric in Atlanta. Tucker Davidson came here and I'm not to be critical of Tucker Davidson, but he was not good. I mean, it's just the way it was. Mm-hmm. Didn't look like, I don't think anybody's expecting him to start in the rotation this year. The way things kind of, I mean, who knows? Maybe he had a great offseason. But yeah, I mean, they could really use someone like Raisel Iglesias. Clearly they wanted to dump some salary, but maybe that had something to do with the with the thought of the sale at that point. Maybe that was part of why that trade was made. But if you look at where they are now, I mean, they could really use him. What was your question?
Oh, just do you think not having a closer, the 6 starter is kind of up in the air? They don't really have a shortstop.
Yeah. Sorry, I just was like, I guess like talking about Raisel Iglesias, and I got totally sidetracked. I mean, they definitely like. Well, I mean, listen, you can only do so much, and Perry did say, he did tell us that they could go over the luxury tax threshold. That would be no issue. And then they basically only have gotten Brandon, did I say Brandon Phillips? I mean, like they've basically gotten, just Brett Phillips since then.
Yeah.
And that's it. I think, and they spent like 1.2 million on him. So, yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sure if he was being super honest when he said they could go above the luxury tax, and that obviously would have, put them in position. They do need a shortstop. Do I think that they're, compromised without a true shortstop like they have now? I mean, I think Luis, I mean, I think it would be bad if you boxed out Luis Rengifo too. I mean, the way he played last year, he looked like a major league starter, and I think he's earned the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Whether or not that means playing every day at short, I think remains to be seen. But, and they're paying David Fletcher. I mean, he's not a productive hitter. He's arguably one of the least productive hitters in baseball. If you look at, some of those advanced stats, but at the end of the day, I mean, I don't think he's a bad player. I think he brings other things. He puts the ball in play, and that's a valuable tool. He's good defensively. And he'll get on base in spurts. I think that, when he's hot, he's a very valuable player to have on the field. So did they need to go out and get a, Carlos Correa or, a Trey Turner or whatever? Probably would. I mean, nobody would argue with that being a good thing. But, I if you were to ask me what would be better for the Angels, get one superstar shortstop or get three guys you got on your infield that kind of fill in the holes if needed, I would totally take the latter 100 times out of 100.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hey, listener Aggie Nicky on Instagram, he said, who's your favorite player that's new to the team in 2023? Maybe that's a signing or a trade or maybe even a potential call-up.
I mean, I'm super pumped to cover Brett Phillips. I mean, this guy is like, he seems like the kind of person is like, I mean, anybody to me who's like approachable and like helpful, nice. I mean, who knows? Maybe he won't be that. Maybe that's all a bit. I have not met him, but he seems awesome. I mean, someone like watching that play in Game 4 of the 2020 World Series when he's just like flying across home plate is like just an iconic Major League Baseball moment for me.
Totally.
Him coming into pitch for the first time. And he was so great when we talked to him right after he got signed, and just like how difficult the offseason was for him, not hearing from teams. And I know the Angels were the only one to offer him a major league deal. It's not like they're paying him a ton of money or anything. I think the Brett Phillips situation is interesting because he's, you're kind of making a point that, hey, there's not really a spot for you right now, Joe Adell. There's not a spot for you right now, Mickey Moniak. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It'll be competition's always good in my opinion, but I don't know if it was necessarily right for Perry to say, hey, there's no like competition here, that those jobs are solidified. I mean, I was a little surprised he went that far, but that's why I gave him a major league deal, I suppose. But yeah, I'm looking forward to covering him. Estevez seems really cool too, by the way. He seems like an awesome guy. So, Hunter Renfroe, super honest when we talked to him, just had some good answers. So, some of those guys I'm looking forward to. I think the guys that they've brought in seem like they're fun and, easy to talk to and have great personalities. So, the Angels already had several of those. I'd love to tell you about some of the cool guys to talk to on the actual team that I know, but, it's like Walsh, Stassi, like those guys are always – David Fletcher says like 2 words every time, but he's always in the game. It's like always a cat and mouse game with interviewing him. It's like he knows exactly what he's doing. The second the recorder's off, he's a normal guy. But he's like, yeah, great. Like it's always one.
He's like a junior high boy, right?
Yeah. He knows what he's doing, and it's like just a joke at this point. Like we're all standing there laughing,
funny.
Talking. He's a delightful guy. So Joe Adell's really great to talk with as well. I mean, he's really honest about stuff, and I think he's dealt with so much, in terms of being called up and brought back down, and having to kind of question his talents at times because it's just not showing on the field. Like I give him a lot of credit for how he's handled everything. So there's a lot of good personalities out there. I'd love to talk to Ohtani more. He's not necessarily accessible. So yeah.
Those Brett Phillips and Ohtani gifts that are we're gonna have tons of those this season, I'm sure.
It's gonna be fun. Yeah. If this team is good, man, it'll be so fun to cover them. I mean, you can kind of sense it, but it's like I'd love to see it. We'll see.
Yeah.
Definitely. Hey Sam, where can everybody find you online, on socials, things like that?
You can find me on Twitter at SamBlum3, right there on the thing. That's really my only social media for now. Unless Twitter goes down, then I'll give you an update on where else you can find me. But, and please subscribe to The Athletic. As you guys said, it's
yes,
always some deal happening. If there isn't, still subscribe. Hopefully.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely worth it. Definitely worth the content. Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, Sam, we just want to go on record and say that we like you. So if nobody else likes you, Mike and John like you, and your mom,
Well,
right?
I mean, I don't know if you guys have told Jeff Fletcher the same thing, so we'll see.
We tell everybody that. Whenever they come on the show, we tell everybody that.
Yeah,
Man,
well,
what a great time, man. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for being honest. I think that's what Angel fans really appreciate about you is that you are very unbiased. You're very much about getting the news out there, and you've really done a great job in reporting on the Angels. Look forward to the 2023 season and all that you bring, and come back on the show again, and let's keep talking, because this was a really good time.
Just let me know. I'm happy to come on anytime. Thanks for having me.
Love it. Thank you, Sam.
What a great conversation with Sam Blum. We're so grateful for him, and we're grateful that you have made Locked On Angels your first listen today. Now make your second listen, the Locked On MLB Prospect Show with our friend Lindsey Crosby. He is a prospect encyclopedia, and he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow, and his podcast is free and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure to catch us on Twitter at Locked On Angels, and of course on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. We would love to hear from you there. Hey, Mike, what do we have on deck for Friday's show?
All right, we're going to talk about the tension we're riding, that we didn't get a shortstop, and we didn't get a closer, and we didn't get this player, and didn't get that player. Like, are we okay with this team? We're gonna have a therapy session on Friday, John. So let's talk that through on Friday on Locked On Angels.
Looking forward to that conversation. And again, we're so thankful to Sam Blum for joining us today. We hope you had a great time with us today, and we will see you back here on Friday. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Angels, and we'll see you back here on Friday.